Today we're at the Cooperative Extension Service here at Wayne Center. We're talking with horticulture agent Jessica Strickland. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Well, it's a little warm, but that's okay.
Is.
I mean, it is July after all.
It has been a warm summer. We've kind of skipped this for a couple of years. Now we're back to our traditional hot summers.
Yeah, the average high, I understand, for this area is about 90. Right. And we've been above 90 for several days here. But I understand that soon we'll be getting some rain, so that's a good thing. We need the rain. Farmers can use it, of course.
Oh, yes.
But rain is has been off and on here. We'll be inundated with it for a while, and then it just will stop and dry up. Everything dries up. So let's talk about water conservation and how to gather and maybe collect water. Is that what we want to talk about?
Yes, because water conservation, you know, we're seeing in other states, California and such, that, you know, when droughts hit, we're having a harder and tougher time of, you know, managing our water and reserving that resource. And a lot of attention gets put on the gardens, the landscapes, on, you know, how much water is being used and how we can conserve it. And we've been going through a little bit of a dry spell as far as not having a lot of rain here, and we have very sandy soil. So at times, you know, we've experienced in past years, you know, where we have, you know, drought-like conditions, and it really does take a toll, you know, on your garden and landscape. But there are some things we can do, you know, thinking differently about how to save water and conserve it, and select plants that are suited for our area so they don't take as much water.
All right. Well, let me ask you a couple of things here. First of all, you mentioned selecting the right plants.
Yes.
Plants that are indigenous to this area, they're used to this.
That's right. A lot of them are more drought tolerant. They're more adapted to our climate, so they're used to the, you know, they can handle the summer heat and dry weather and the sandier soils and not need as much water. One thing that happens is when you put plants first in the ground, any plant's going to need some water to get started. You've got to really help get that root system established. But for us, the best time to plant, especially your trees and shrubs, is in the fall. And that gives time for the roots to develop. And then when you get into the spring, if we have a short spring and then a hot summer, that plant's already got a root system going, where versus you put it out in the spring, you might not get that time to get it established, and then you have to water more. So that's, you know, one simple way is just... So
right now is when you need to be planning what you're going to be planting.
That would be great to start planting now and plant in the fall, and then that'll set you up for next year that you can water the plant some. Maybe in next spring you'd have to water it a little bit just to get it going, but gradually you can cut back on that. You don't have to keep watering. And the way I tell a lot of times our master gardeners or gardeners that come in is you water it to get it established, but gradually you cut back on that and let it take over as far as being adapted to that area. And that way that conserves water, and you don't have to water all the time to keep the plants going, and that can help. But during dry periods, you're going to see the grass turn a little brown. You're going to see some plants struggle a little bit, and they might need extra water from time to time, especially if we got you know, a long time with very little water. Yeah,
without rain. When it dries up a little bit, things are going to turn a little brown. But but how long can we go actually without water before everything just absolutely dies out? We can go pretty good while, can't we?
We can, and usually you're looking at, you know, ideally we'd love to have an inch of rain a week. About an inch. If you have a rain, you know, having a rain gauge is a great way to keep up with how much rain we're getting, and to monitor it. But if we're getting about an inch, it's great. But we're going to go sometimes, of course, without that inch of rain. So we can go a little. It depends on the garden. You know, as far as if you got plants adapted for this area, mulch is great for conserving moisture. Keeps the soil from voiding the soil drying out too quick. And that can help also. So some practices like that, but too, you know, when you talk about water conservation, there's a lot of ways that we can save water and reuse it. There's a lot of water that when it does rain, we get hard rains, we get a lot at one time usually, that you can, you know, have rain barrels to save, collect water and use that, so you're not having to use, you know, your own water, whether it's from a well or from city or county water.
All right, well, we're going to look at a couple of those here in just a minute, but let me ask you, when you mentioned that the fall is the best time to plant shrubs and trees. As far as trees go, you got your basic two kinds. You got deciduous.
Yes. And evergreen.
And evergreen.
That's right.
Evergreen are the needles. There's trees with needles, like the cedars and the pines and all that. Which is, well, some people have a problem with the evergreen trees because they drop pine needles, and some people don't like that. And the others drop leaves, and people don't like that. But is there a difference between one taking up more water than the other? Does it take more or less for one or the other, or is it about the same?
It's just going to depend on the plant. Some of your bigger, especially like oaks and maples, once they get to be really big trees, they use a lot of water. And then too, you consider that these plants, just like when we, sweat, plants release or transpire water. You know, they release some water. That's sometimes when you see some of your plants. Tomatoes are a good example that when they're dry, their leaves curl up. They're trying to conserve some moisture. They're trying to hold on to what they can. And so
they're pretty smart.
Yes, yeah. And so some of your trees, sometimes you might see that the leaves drop a little early because due to dry weather. They're trying to conserve what energy and moisture they have. So sometimes larger trees, need a lot of water, and they can, suffer from a long drought.
From a long drought.
And it's kind of one of those too. It's hard to tell because it doesn't happen quickly. It's like maybe a year or two later you start to notice the tree's just weaker, it's not doing as well. Trees are slow to show that damage, whether it's drought or some type of root damage or
I have some dogwoods in my yard, and when we go a long period without rain, they will eventually start dropping their leaves. That doesn't mean the tree's dying. It means they're protecting themselves.
Right. They're trying to conserve what energy they have, because you consider that there's all this energy reserve in the roots and in that plant. They're trying to conserve what they have, and they might dip into that reserve some to make it through some tough years like with drought or something. But then they, hopefully can bounce back. But sometimes, depending on if they just don't have enough reserve to make it, they might not. But definitely it's something, to not panic immediately, but give it time to see. Because if it's dropping its leaves, give it time and see if it comes back next year.
Okay. So don't panic. Just kind of hang on.
Yeah, you just kind of have to wait and see. And unfortunately, it's part of nature that sometimes it is going to happen. You're going to lose a few plants when we have a really dry spell, or even when we have a really wet spell.
Right. Okay, and I like what you said about the tomatoes too. That's pretty interesting.
Yes, you'll see that where they curl and to conserve moisture.
Right. Very good. All right. Now you mentioned conserving water.
Yes.
When it does rain, we can actually collect rainwater.
We can.
It's not that hard to do.
It really is not hard to do. We have an example of what we call a cistern, and it's a large barrel that is holding water, and we've got the gutter. The drain going, right to that spot.
Right to the cistern.
And then we can hook a water hose to it. We can hook a soaker hose and water our beds with it. So we've used it before for many things, and it does collect a lot of water. You think about how much water comes off of a roof. That you can actually collect quite a bit.
So if you have a gutter system, and let's say you live in make it easy, 1,000 square feet or a 2,000 square foot home. An inch by 2,000 square feet is a lot of water.
It's a lot of water.
That's a tremendous amount of water.
Yes. And so we actually, we keep ours just stays pretty full most of the time. And otherwise, besides setting it up where either, this one has a pump that you can hook the hose to it and use. Others, they have a spigot, just a simple rain barrel, have a spigot. The main thing is to have a screen to keep from debris coming in with it. And then also you might check for mosquitoes, and might have to put some of those mosquito dunks in the water just to keep mosquitoes down, because they like that still water if it stays still.
And let's mention, this is not for drinking. This is for using.
That's right. Yeah, not looking at drinking. We're using it for plants or washing your car, or cleaning up something outside, possibly. But a lot of times to water your plants, take care of your garden works great.
So it's so you would put in the mosquito repellent into the water as you do with your bird baths and flower pots and that sort of thing, right?
Yes, you can.
All right. Which do you like better? You like the what are they? Some of them are donut shaped.
They are. There's some little dunks, and even too, you can find some really fine mesh screen to put at the end, the opening, and that's supposed to prevent mosquitoes too from getting in. But you got to find a really fine mesh.
Yeah, it's got to be really fine.
Yes, to prevent as far as any larvae and eggs getting in there to get them started.
Now that is, and where do you get these cisterns?
You can get different places. A lot of people are creative with, they might find the larger cisterns and do those. A lot of people use
There's not a cistern store around anywhere,
no,
is there? Okay.
Checking with garden centers, checking even online, even some maybe like ag supply places and so forth but a lot of people come up with just a simple rain barrel. They might take, a lot of people around here with Mount Olive pickle use the pickle barrels and to make a rain barrel with. Some people just don't even go with a barrel. They might set a bucket outside and collect rainwater and then turn around and pour it right on their plants.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different creative ways you can collect rainwater.
But you say a cistern you could probably find at places like Lowe's and Home Depot and Tractor Supply and places like that.
Yeah, might be able to find some there.
Yeah, maybe. Yes. Don't really know, but you can talk to them about it.
Definitely. Yeah, it'd take some checking around to find a larger cistern to use.
Yeah, especially one that size there. But like you say, though, people can be quite creative and make their own.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I happen to have one of these large plastic trash cans sitting on my deck to catch rainwater as it comes off the roof.
Yep.
And it works for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some people, they want, they make them decorative, they paint them, or they have the rain chains, that's a decorative item that the rain runs down into. So you can really decorate it and have it fit in with your, garden and so forth. And it doesn't have to be a, just a plain barrel there either. A lot of people like to decorate them.
Okay. Jessica, now we're standing over here at another part of the extension office here at Wayne Center. We're looking at a rain barrel here. Tell me about this. I see it also empties from the roof into the rain barrel.
It does. It empties from the gutter in, and it has, it's just like a pickle barrel. It has a spigot at the bottom.
That's a pickle barrel.
Yes, and then we've had where we've put some tomato plants in containers here for a project.
Yeah.
So we run the soaker hose through the tomatoes and just cut a hole in each barrel, so that way, just a way to water the tomatoes.
All right, now you've got a ton of tomato plants here that seem to be thriving quite well, by the way.
They're doing very well.
Yes, they are, and lots of blooms on them. You're going to be having some tomatoes here in a couple of weeks or less. And you have a soaker hose running into each container. And I might add that these tomatoes are in containers. They're not planted in the ground. Container gardening is a whole other story, which I happen to love, by the way.
And containers can take a lot of water, but something like this, where you can use the rain barrel and you conserve some water, that can be a way to reuse some water instead of having to use water hose and so forth.
All right, so with a soaker hose, you don't have to do anything, do you? You just come out, it just almost automatic, isn't it?
Yeah, you could come turn it on. You could really get more technical and set it up with a timer, so you don't have to remember it.
That's too technical to me.
So you can go as far as you want with that.
Okay. All right. So you just get a barrel about that. That's plastic too, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah, and they cut a hole in it. In this one, we've forgot we need to get a screen back in it, but you'd have a screen there to catch the debris, and then they put a spigot in the bottom where you can turn it on.
They hook the soaker hose up to that.
Yes,
And the soaker hose runs right into the containers. And as long as the level in the container is above the container the tomatoes are in, it'll all come out anyway.
Yes.
If it gets below that point, then it won't.
That's right. Yes.
Okay, I think I got that.
Okay.
All right, very good. Now, what else do we need to add or say about?
Well, I can add that we've got some information if they're interested in more about conserving water.
Okay.
We have some information, brochures about it. So.
All right. Very good. Very good. We've been talking with Jessica Strickland today about watering your garden, about collecting rainwater, and how to do that in times of dryness, I guess, if you would. If you want more information about this, how do we contact you?
Our office, we're on the corner of George and Chestnut Street in Goldsboro, and our office number is 919-731-1520, and we have our Master Gardeners, our plant clinics, open through the end of August. and their phone number is 919-731-1433, and they're in the plant clinic Mondays and Wednesdays 10 to 1.
All right, that's when there's actually somebody in that office.
Yes, but you could call anytime, leave a message, and they'll call you back during those times.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Call anytime, 24/7. Leave a message while you're thinking about it at 3 a.m.
Yes.
You can call and leave a message, and they'll call you back Monday or Wednesday, right?
That's right.
That's right, and they do a great job.
They do. They do a great job in answering and helping people with their gardening questions or getting information. And as far as more information about water conservation, we do have a brochure that's with North Carolina Cooperative Extension, and it talks more about how to save and conserve water, so that's something we have available at our office too.
Very good. All right, Jessica, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.